All right, making this a relatively quick one. I'm not terribly up to speed on this, so I'm going to give my uninformed and just on vibes opinion on it. And apologies for how long this has taken me to actually do anything. All 12 of you who are going to watch this, I was on vacation for the last week and a half. Appalachia is beautiful this time of year, by the way. Recording on the 5th of November, the year of our Lord 2025. Bow. Poor girl. Kind of screwed up there. For those of you who don't know, she made a tweet on the subject of very, very obviously the Mizkif situation. Basically, giving her opinion that if you're a small female content creator, and I hate that term, streamer, was a small female streamer, and a large male streamer just suddenly comes out of nowhere, showering you with praise and opportunities, etc., etc., that was a big danger and you should run. That's not an inaccurate statement. I really don't have any objection to what she said, but a couple of people did the typical midwit thing where they see a fairly general but specific enough to be understood sentence and decided to overly generalize it with exceptions that they could, possibly think of, and then got angry about it. And Bao did not take that very well, reacted very poorly, kept spiraling, doubling, and tripling down, which I can kind of understand because uh, apologizing is usually a pretty bad idea nowadays, unfortunately. Just, sort of the milieu that we live in. Uh, but honestly, she just really should have just ignored all the blowback and just tweeted through it and just not cared. It would have all blown over. And Shondo, for her part, also probably shouldn't have tried to make her funny, funny, ha ha schizo joke in the comments of the comments because, again, she had to double and triple down because no one wants to apologize these days, and I don't entirely blame them because that was a pretty out of pocket thing what she said, like accusing some guy who was doing the midwit thing of being basically a groomer. Like, yeah, he was being a midwit and misinterpreting what Bao said, but that was also like, yeah, I don't think it applied to that guy because I don't think that guy was actually very big. But the problem is the people who are not very big taking offense to Bao talking about the people who are very big, because that sort of social dynamic happens all the time. It's actually quite natural. It's sort of the normal order of things ever since the prehistoric days. Like, large, successful guy, very attractive to women. Just always, ever. It's how we work, right? So when you have these small, relatively just, unsuccessful or not yet successful, just starting out female streamers, one of the best ways they can get ahead in their careers is to collab with a larger established streamer, and those tend to be guys. And because it's the guys are usually getting by on personality, performance, and entertainment value, uh, they tend to have a higher ceiling, which is one of the things that Mizkif was kind of talking about, like XQC or whoever, like talking them off the edge by saying, women have a cap, guys just keep going. That's technically true. Like, the biggest streamers in the world are guys, and there's a fairly large number of quite successful women underneath that. And then there's a bunch of much less successful guys, and then girls underneath that, and then just the sea of one and two of you, Andy and Andreas, right? Uh, but any female streamer who enters this milieu, this sphere, is naturally going to be drawn towards wanting to interact with those bigger guys. Because, in terms of romantic partners, as we saw with the Mizkif Emaru thing, they're in the same social circles, right? Those are basically your coworkers. How often have you heard people like meeting at work or meeting at school or meeting at church or meeting at wherever they are spending all their time. These streamers are spending all their time online interacting with other people online. That is their social circle. That's just how it's going to go. So on the one hand, Bao was interpreted as being very accusatory towards some of these guys, which, in fairness, some of them definitely guilty of a lot of that stuff, not for like sincere reasons. Some of those guys, I'm sure, some guys, I'm sure, are like fairly decent, maybe even slightly normal dudes who just meet a girl, incidentally, online through streaming, and who knows, they could, get married, have 15 kids, and live happily ever after. It's not impossible, just unlikely. Uh, but there's going to be, the Mizkifs, etc. of the world, and the creepers who are going to abuse the relative power differential. There's also women who are going to potentially try to use them to get a leg up, and I think that's partially what Mizkif was like freaking out about, is that he kept having these girls who would eventually like get more successful than him, and he was so obsessed with numbers that it just caused him to wig out. I'm not saying that Emaru, etc., like used him, but I'm sure he probably interpreted it that way, and just his natural insecurity over those sorts of things and getting overshadowed essentially by his own pupils, if you will, probably caused him to act out of pocket, which is on him, not the ladies, to be fair. But now we got Bao like saying she was engagement farming and she didn't really mean it, and everyone should forget about it. And I think she's just kind of feeling around for an out because she doesn't cope very well with this sort of thing. Bao does not strike me as a particularly combative person over the long run, right? Most relatively successful female streamers are generally pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Agreeable people. They're not like known for being jerks or known for being like crazy and angry. That's not what people generally, watch women for. They watch them because they're cute and silly and funny and, entertaining in a sweet way, or if they're going for the GFE thing, a sultry way, but they're not usually well known for being jerks. A guy can go real far streaming as a jerk persona, or like a constantly angry persona. A good example of that would be like Queso. Queso's a big guy, pun intended, and a big part of the reason he's so successful is because he is a, big chungus guy, and people make fun of him for being fat, and then he has his overblown reaction to people calling him fat, and people watch him for that because it's entertaining. It's like a sunset is beautiful, but a train wreck will cause you to slow your car down and look at it. Like a sunset is just like, oh wow, that's beautiful. Car crashes, just human nature. I mean, that's just what we do. Like, what was that Nikocado Avocado guy or whatever, who like just absolutely ballooned himself up and was doing all sorts of weird stuff, and people like couldn't look away even as they were telling him to get his life in line, which he did. So congratulations. I think he's kind of had some other weird stuff going on with him that people aren't like as interested in what he's doing nowadays that maybe he thought they would after that. But I mean, that hat trick he pulled off, props. That was actually pretty impressive, right? So anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to cut off the Bao video just like that. I understand. I didn't get offended, Bao. I kind of understand why other people did, because it was a little ambiguous, but I think people overreacted to it. I think you overreacted to it, to their reaction, and it's just become a whole lot of stuff that you really don't need to be dealing with right now. Just log off the Twitter. Just have fun on your streams and whatnot. ignore it, and collectively, I think the internet will just kind of freaking forget. Keep that in mind next time, because something tells me you're probably, unfortunately, going to make this mistake again.